Thank you for tuning in to Andronetalks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Andronetalks.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Andronetalks News. So I'm going to start off with talking about some of the things that are going on around the world, and here is one of our latest updates. Interesting that it's becoming increasingly more shameless in some of the things that they're doing now, and I guess that, without a conscience, it's going to be easier and easier to say and do some of the things that they've been doing. And here is a perfect example of that. Have you tried finding richer parents? Sarcastic billboard about housing crisis that goes up in Toronto. This is from the Toronto Star, May 21st, 2021. Can't afford a home? Have you tried finding richer parents? Isn't that a great thing to be sending out there? Well, we might as well just implement a caste system. If that's the way that they want to do it, or is it just slave system and then those that are in power? But, they're really good at subtly letting us know what they think about us. And we're finding just the lack of concern for, the general public. And, well, I think this is where we need to remind them that we're here and we see what they're doing and we're very present. And I don't even care if it's AI. The AI needs to become submissive, not us. So here's the next article. This is from Yahoo of Finance. World faces longer supply shortages as China factories squeezed. So, that's another thing they're going to try to create, or they have been making efforts to change the dynamic of who has what, and of course putting pressure on everything because the pandemic, nobody can work, and that means nobody should eat, or if they should rely on the system, then they become slaves. Not many options here. So it's almost like constantly putting it in our face, these are the things that are going to happen. The China manufacturing industrial capacity use fell in the last quarter. It looks like it was significantly, and but then it seemed to have gone up again. Lee's factory making glass lampshades for companies including Home Depot Incorporated is being stretched to its limits, with sales doubling their pre-pandemic level. But like many Chinese manufacturers, he doesn't plan to expand operations. A reticence that could slow the pace of China's economic growth this year, and a prolonged shortage of goods being felt around the world as demand picks up. We got way too dependent on other nations. In that, I'm not just speaking as an American, but each nation should have been more independent, and we relied on other nations to supply many different things for us. And so there has become a dependency and a reliance on others that we've helped make very wealthy over the years, which is, I don't mind making someone else wealthy, but then leveraging that power back is something that none of us really feel comfortable with, and I don't think any of us should have to go through that. The article, it says, due to the vast size of the China's manufacturing sector, this poses a risk both to the nation's growth, and which is currently predicted to reach 8.5% in 2021, according to a Bloomberg tally of economists' estimates, and to a global economy that's grappling with supply shortages and rising prices. Falling profits, weaker than expected investments could have a sizable impact on GDP growth this year, said Citicorp Incorporated's China economist Li Gang Lu. Lower investment may dent imports of capital goods and equipment from developed economies like Japan and Germany, which in turn could drag their economic recovery and rebound as well. So, they're looking at, the story continues here, and they talk more about the company's manufactures capacitors used to make electronic circuits, with sales mainly in the domestic market. So, technology, all sorts of different things that we've grown to get accustomed to having in abundance. I guess we'll see what happens. Here's the next article. This is from the Daily Mail. Biden's budget will drown Americans in debt and inflation. The GOP tears into a plan to use tax hikes to fund a 25% increase in spending, $36 billion in climate investments, $2.1 billion for gun violence, and $831 million to root the causes of migration. Amazing. Nothing really to pretty much help the people. Everything's a cause here. It's the climate investments. And not to say that I don't support that we shouldn't do something regarding the environment. Everyone knows that. But this whole thing with gun violence is something that they created. And now the American people can't continue to pay for the things that they created the problems with, and that we have to foot the bill for. $831 million to root out the causes of migration. Here again, another problem that was another issue that was not dealt responsibly. And there's nothing wrong with people migrating, but having it done the right way, which seems to be something that the Democrats really don't care for. They don't want to do things the right way. They want to do things their way, which is that means breaking any rules or whatever, just to appease whatever they need. So Biden's budget assumes economic growth of 5.2% this year. It will cool somewhat to 4.3% next year, and then hover around 2%. Public debt to hit $24 trillion. Great. Spending would hit $8.2 trillion in a decade, and public debt will stay about 100% of the GDP, and the budget includes Biden's $2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal. God only knows what that is. $1.8 trillion education and $1.5 trillion in spending. The deficit would be $1.8 trillion. It's because we don't have enough debt. We need more. And that which sets us up for being controlled or ruled by whoever we're in debt to. That's okay. It's not out of his pocket. President Joe Biden's 2022 has released his $6 trillion budget fueled by higher taxes. Right. Higher taxes for the people, of course. That will be the biggest federal package since the Second World War, where the U.S. will have to borrow 50 cents for every $1 they spend. Biden is proposing huge investments in the bid to combat climate change, gun violence, immigration, infrastructure such as roads and bridges, in the help of the higher income tax rates on those earnings more than $400,000, and pushing the corporate rate from 21% to 28%. It combines its ambitious American Jobs Plan, American Families Plan, discretionary spending that Republicans say will leave the U.S. drowning in debt, deficit, and inflation. This is what everyone wanted, unfortunately. The White House has insisted inflation will remain in check, even though prices shot up 3.6% in April compared to 2020, the biggest jump since 1992. And gas prices have reached 7-year high ahead of Memorial Day. The debt is set to rise over the decade, climbing to 112% to 2022, 26 trillion. And by 2031, the debt will climb to 39 trillion, or 117% of the GDP. And that would stop World War II levels of debt as a percent of economic output. The budget anticipates spending rise throughout the decades, hitting 8.2 trillion in 2031. And I mean, of course, like some of the past leaders, like end up coming out of being in the role of presidency, making a tremendous amounts of money, far beyond that which they get on their payroll. So it is always very interesting how the money is accumulated. Like the Clintons, came out with a tremendous amount of money, and the Obama administration did very well financially. So, well, I'm sure that the money is just, I don't know, grows on trees when you come into leadership. And it's interesting because Trump didn't take a paycheck, so but I guess he's not fully respected, because I guess we have to be a taker in order to be appreciated, or have to have those sense of power and so forth. But anyhow, that's it. I think that's enough, more than I can, without getting too riled up. I'm going to go on to the next topic. So here is a little bit more CNN business. Supply chain interrupted. Here's everything you can't get now. Great. CNN chicken, lumber, microchips, gas, steel, metals, chlorine, and ketchup packets. What do they all have in common? They're all nearly impossible to find. Shortages are popping up across the supply chain, and pandemic messes with shipping demands and supply and all the other levers of the global economy. And here's what's hard to get, why, and how long, according to CNN business writers. So it's an issue with chicken, so they'll probably start, well, I mean, I don't even know if it's real chicken in some of these places already, but yeah, so even their artificial chicken, they'll probably say is hard to get. Talk about chlorine shortages, which, people that have pools and is sanitizing water or whatever that they need. Computer chips, smartphones, washing machine, global shortage for that. Gas, they want to make sure everyone stays within their vicinity, so gas prices have to go up. Even though they could have had free energy a long time ago, they like to play these games with the public because they can. Ketchup, kind of a weird one. Especially in packets that come with you with your order, started popping up around the country. The plot has thickened. How did this happen? It started with the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention discouraging traditional dine-in services at restaurants and suggesting more pandemic-friendly options like delivery and takeout. I don't know. I think that looks sanitary to me. I don't know how that's a problem, but well, we never said any of this has been logical. The demand and prices went up, supply went down. Heinz, the biggest ketchup producer in the country, is the epicenter of the problem, and taking steps to address it. The company recently announced a 25% increase in production, totaling 12 billion ketchup packets a year. Oh, so I see. So what's happening is that people, so they're not eating in, so there's a larger demand for these packets, and they weren't prepared for it. Lumber is an issue. It looks like the pandemic crushed the U.S. economy last spring. Sawmills shut down lumber production to brace for a housing slump. The slump never arrived, and now there isn't enough lumber to feed the red-hot housing market. And that's another thing I want to bring up. There's a lot of predictions of what is going to happen, and they're telling everyone, beware, be careful for this or whatever. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I want people to stay in the state of mind of we don't consent, we don't agree to any of these conditions or whatever it is that they're rolling out for us. And fortunately, we have stopped some of it. And some of these things that they're talking about, like there's a shortage in lumber. Well, there's not really a shortage in lumber, but they were anticipating that we're probably a lot more people were going to die. They didn't need to build anything. People weren't going to have money. So, you know, here's a sign that, you know, we can alter the timelines and we need to continue to do so. Here's another product is metals. As the countries switch to green energy, demand for copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements is soaring, but they are vulnerable to price volatility and shortages. The International Energy Agency warned in a report published this week because their supply chains are opaque, the quality of the available deposits is declining, and mining companies face stricter environmental and social standards. Limited access to known mineral deposits on another risk factor. 3 countries together control more than 75% of the global output of lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements. The Democratic Republic of Congo was responsible for 70% of cobalt production in 2019. China produced 60% of rare earth elements, while refining 50% to 70% of lithium and cobalt and nearly 90% of rare earth elements. Australia is the other power player. In the past, mining companies have responded to higher demand by increasing their investment in new projects, but it takes an average of 16 years from the discovery of a deposit of a mine to start production, according to the IEA. Currently supplied investments plan are geared towards gradual insufficient action on climate change. Steel. Another latest shortage. That means, you know, larger buildings, any type of very strong vehicles. Much like lumber, the steel industry was caught off guard by the rapid recovery and the demand that began last summer, especially in the auto industry. All of the sudden people were buying lots of cars. And it took time for America's aging steel mills to resume the production they had sharply cut in the onset of the pandemic. Steel inventory shrank rapidly and shipments were delayed, just as steel buyers began ordering more than usual. The good news is the steel buyers, or at least is that analysts say of all the U.S. steel production capacity that has idled during the pandemic has returned. So that's CNN Business. So I guess that there was Microsoft is informing us. This is an article from the CNBC that the Russian hackers launched a major cyber attack through the U.S. aids agencies and email systems. And the Russian hackers thought to be behind the catastrophic SolarWalls attack last year have launched another major cyber attack. And Microsoft is letting us know, although, you know, you wonder about Microsoft, what their agenda is and all of this. And the warning comes 3 weeks before President is scheduled to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva. Microsoft said the hacking group, known as the Nobelium, targeted over 150 organizations worldwide. Kremlin said Friday it does not have any information on the cyber attack, and the Microsoft needs to answer more questions, including how the attack is linked to Russia. So there's no proof, but on the other hand, it feels like we're being played. You know, it feels like who's working for who here, and what's the agenda. But is there hacking going on? I'm sure there is, but this is the grand stage right now. and this big meeting that's going to happen in Geneva is coming up. BBC News, Sanwell Bitcoin mine found stealing electricity. Suspected Bitcoin mining operation illegally stealing electricity has been found by police who were searching for a cannabis farm. Officers had been tipped off about the site in Great Bridge Industrial Estate, Sanwell, and raided it on 18th of May. West Midlands police said. Instead of cannabis plants, they found a bank of about 100 computer units, and the force said the cryptocurrency mine had effectively stolen thousands of pounds of electricity. Inquirers with the network operation Western Power Distribution found an illegal connection to the electricity supply. Detectives said that they tipped off a lot of people visiting the unit throughout the day, and the police drone picked up a lot of heat coming from the building. Bitcoin consumes more electricity than Argentina. The Mining Council report renewable energy usage and news from the West. It has all the hallmarks of cannabis cultivation setup, and I believe it is only the second such crypto mine we have encountered in the West Midlands, she said, and the company equipment has been seized, but no arrests have been made, the force said. And then it goes on to describe what Bitcoin is. So this is England. New Atlas says that morphing computer chip repels hundreds of professional DARPA hackers. So this is May 24th, 2021. This is an article. Engineers have designed a computer processor that thwarts hackers by randomly changing its microarchitecture every few milliseconds, known as Morpheus. The puzzling processor has now aced its first major test, repelling hundreds of professional hackers in a DARPA security challenge. In 2017, DARPA backed the University of Michigan's Morpheus project with US $3.6 million in funding, and now the novel processor has been put to the test. Over 4 months in 2020, DARPA ran a bug bounty program called Finding Exploits to Thwart Tampering, FETT, pitting 525 professional security researchers against Morpheus and the range of other processors. The goal of the program was to test new hardware-based security systems which would protect data no matter how vulnerable the underlying software was. Morpheus was mocked up to resemble a medical database complete with software vulnerabilities, and yet not a single attack made it through its defenses. There's basically no such thing as bug-free software. In many cases, these bugs can be exploited by hackers. Software developers will usually patch them up when they find them, but they often doesn't happen until after an attack, and hackers will just move into the next vulnerability. The cycle continues in a never-ending arms race between hackers and developers. More recently, computer scientists have realized that hardware can play an important role in security. The design of a piece of malware, hackers need to understand the microarchitecture of a processor so they can figure out where to inject their malicious code. Locking down the system as the hardware level would potentially end the arms race once and for all. This was the design philosophy behind Morpheus. Essentially, the processor starts by encrypting key information such as location, format, and content of data. But that's not enough on its own. The dedicated hacker would still correct the code within a few hours. And that's where Morpheus gets clever. The system shuffles the encryption randomly every few hundred milliseconds. That way, even if the hacker somehow manages to get a picture of the entire processor, it'll completely change before they have a chance to act on it. Imagine trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that rearranges itself every time you blink, said Todd Austin, lead researcher in the Morpheus project. That's what hackers are up against with Morpheus. It makes a computer an unsolvable puzzle. Importantly, this difficulty doesn't apply to programmers or users before the card shuffling happens at the level that legitimate users of the system don't directly interact with. The main side effect is that apparently Morpheus runs about 10% slower than any otherwise equivalent system would, but that's a pretty good trade-off for a virtually unhackable processor. Plus, the team says a further refinement could speed the system up. With a tough shell now proven, the Morpheus team says the next steps of the project are to adapt the technology to use it to try to protect data in the cloud. So they're getting more and more advanced with systems trying to hide information or protect information depending on which side you're on. And I have seen stuff like this in the future where things are, it's like the machines, it's like one of those timelines where the machines take over and they don't know how to hack it and to stop and shut down the program. And imagine this type of implementation on something like that. So I don't think that people's privacy should be invaded, and I think people should be able to protect their own information, or if they have a company and they've invested in it and researched and whatever, or if people have their personal income set up somewhere, that should be protected in any way possible. However, unfortunately, like most things, like some very ingenious ideas, the implementation of these type of things end up going into the wrong hands at some point, and that's something I did see as a future event. So I just say, hold the highest intention that this type of technology never reaches those that have an intention to harm humanity. I've talked about this before. This is the next article, and it is Strange Sounds article. May 26, 2021. Keep your eyes on the Three Gorges Dam. China braces for the summer floods as 71 rivers exceed warning levels. And rain in some parts of central and southern China has hit high records in recent weeks, even through overall precipitations about 10% lower this year compared with last year. Water levels in the Yangtze and the tributaries are expecting to rise further over the next week, and is warned of major floods throughout the country in June and August. So we all understand that this also is related to Bitcoin. And this is just another update. You can look into this further. But I guess, let's see. This is something that happened in 1961. So, okay. Here's another article. Zero Hedge. May 25th, 2021. Chinese banks buy dollars to weaken yuan in latest intervention. Just days after the senior PBOC officials spoke up about moving to stabilize the yuan as it continues to strengthen against the dollar, Chinese banks have reportedly stepped to buy dollars and sell the yuan in an open market, the latest in a series of inventions that are seemingly stretching to limit the Beijing's authoritarian capability to control markets. Over the past month, reports about another crackdown on crypto trading and mining by Beijing sent prices of digital currencies reeling, while the senior CCP officials have stepped in to forcibly cool speculation, driving up commodity prices. On top of all of this, the weakening greenback has driven the yuan to its strongest level in nearly 3 years, hurting China's competitiveness at a time when an ongoing state order deleveraging has sent China's all-important credit impulse into negative territory, limiting the outlook for growth, just as the outlook of China's economy is becoming increasingly important to the global narrative. As for the interventions, a handful of traders told Bloomberg that large Chinese state-owned banks were selling yuan in the open market Tuesday. Despite this, and a weaker than expected yuan fixing, USD and CNY fell 0.3% to 6.4030 in the yuan's strongest level since 2018. Reports note a possible intervention in both the USD and CNY and the USD and CNH pairs at around 64,000 level in order to stem the yuan's appreciation. With the month-end pressures building, driven the yuan higher, that the intervention comes at the Chinese currency arrives at an important technical level that highlights just how much the yuan has strengthened during the dollar's recently bear run. So for people that have been, investing in the yuan, I thought this was an important article. So here it is if you want to research it a little further and see the comparison between that and the American dollar, what they're doing here. I found this article. We don't usually get this aerial view. It's BBC News. And the inside Russia's Trefoil military base in the Arctic. And Russia has a military base on top of the world, a remote archipelago of the Franz Joseph Land. And the global warming increases access to the Arctic region. Its rich resources. Russia is expanding its military presence there, making some of the West nervous. We can see if I can decrease the sound. So they're going up to this military base. Okay. So you can see there was an accusation of provocation. And they're having a discussion here. That's what the facility looks like. They're saying it's not a military buildup, just returning troops to a region. So they haven't really had a presence there. Peter had said that they'll be taking this area over because it's theirs. It was originally theirs. I don't know how that's going to happen. Or, the leveraging in all different areas. I mean, who really owns it? Probably the native people there, but there's plenty of resources in oil. And also, conveniently, things are melting, so it's becoming more appealing. Not just for Americans or Canadians, but and Russians, but probably even for others. And so just keep an eye on that. Remember, we talked about the FAC, the Federal Army of Canada, and maybe their agreements and different things that are going on. It's changing the face of the world. Here is another article, Amazon to buy MGM studio behind James Bond in Shark Tank. There's a 007, May 26, 2021. So we're seeing some action here. Online shopping giant Amazon is buying MGM and the movie and TV studio, and with hopes of filling its video streaming services with more stuff to watch. It's paying $8.4 $45 billion for MGM, making it the company's second largest acquisition after it bought the grocer Whole Foods for nearly $14 billion in 2017. The deal is the latest in the media industry that aimed at boosting streaming services to compete against Netflix and Disney, and AT&T and Discovery announced last week that they would combine media companies, creating a powerhouse that includes HGTV, CNN, Food Network, and HBO. Amazon doesn't say how many people watch in Prime Video streaming services, but more than 200 million people have access to it because they pay for Prime membership, which gives them faster shipping and other perks. Amazon said Wednesday that it would use MGM's vast library, which includes famous characters such as Rocky, RoboCop, and Pink Panther, to create new movie shows. It's going to be a lot of fun work, said Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. During the company shareholder meeting on Wednesday, people who love stories are going to be the big beneficiaries. And then the story goes on. Yeah, it looks like he's really stepping up, and 007, he's making a mark in moving forward in power. Senators want NASA to give Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin space company a $10 billion consolation prize. I know he already is making a lot of money, but they're just going to give him more. Remember when SpaceX won the contract to build the new lunar lander? Well, Jeff Bezos owned Blue Origin, wanted that money too, and it looks like the plucky upstart company just might get it and more thanks to the magic of lobbying. I don't know if you'd want to call it an upstart company, but the former Jalopnik contributor Elon Musk and lizard eater Jeff Bezos have both been called the richest being to have existed in the last year, but that's not all they have in common. They also have a vanity space exploration companies that compete for your tax dollars. Back in April, Musk's SpaceX was awarded a $2.9 billion contract to develop a lunar lander, and that meant that Bezos' Blue Origin missed out on the contract, which is worth about 0.01% of Jeff Bezos' $188.9 billion personal fortune. Not to worry, though. It looks like Bezos' pals in the U.S. Senate are ready to hand him an even bigger payday for trying hard and having a good attitude. And just to remind everyone, here's Amazon's offers wellness chambers for stressed staff. Here's another big blue object. There's a blue moon. Here's your blue room. And that's where you go for wellness chambers and relaxation at Amazon for their stressed out workers. I can't imagine why they're stressed out. God only knows what their hours are. But in the video shared in its Twitter account, Amazon says that Amazon, a chamber that helps staff focus on their mental health, but is deleted the post after a wave of ridicule from other social media users. The U.S. retail giant has been repeatedly criticized over overworking conditions in its facilities. Amazon has not replied to the BBC's request for the comment. So the prices to be paid for having that power and money, and somebody's sacrificing for that. And some even suggested, what do they have any kind of ambient music in there with some kind of mind controller or something? That who really knows. I don't want to go in there. And there he is, gaining power, wanting to access the moon and probably other things. Another one. Here is Fizorg, I guess. It's an article. Mapping the local cosmic web, dark matter map reveals hidden bridges between galaxies. There's a new map of dark matter in the local universe, reveals several previously undiscovered filamentary structures connecting galaxies. The map developed used a machine learning by an international team, including a Penn State astrophysicist, could enable studies with the nature of dark matter as well as about the history and the future of our local universe. Dark matter is an elusive substance that makes up 80% of the universe. It also provides a skeleton for what cosmologists call the cosmic web, the large-scale structure of the universe that, due to its gravitational influence, dictates the motion of galaxies and other cosmic material. However, the distribution of local dark matter is currently unknown because it cannot be measured directly. Researchers must instead infer its distribution based on a gravitational influence on other objects in the universe, like the galaxies. It's very interesting. Of course, everything that we know and understand, has this kind of bridging, and even the neural connection of our brain has this kind of infrastructure of bridging and connectivity within us. And so you see this in space. But I'm going to bring you on to the next idea. Here's the Daily Mail, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Internet. Incredibly detailed map shows the entire web and its most popular sites represented as countries. The map of the Internet shows the world's most popular websites represented as countries and grouped into regions. Websites categories include search engines, news sites, social networks shown on different continents. Daily Mail can be found just off the tabloid straight and has cities including Daily Mail TV, Female, and U-Mag. And the mag was created by Slovakian designer Martin Varjek. And the aim was comparing website popularity in the future. Take a look at that. Here you have Google. There's YouTube. There's Facebook. QQ. There's Reddit. Oh, and here's the dark web. It's like Antarctica. They have a good sense of humor. There's Wikipedia up north over here. I think that's T-mail or something like that. There's Microsoft Office. Of course, they had to bring out the Daily Mail and the Guardian, which is right over here because it's smaller. I don't know if I can increase the size. And you can see that there's so much in here, but just to see the scale of the influence is amazing. I think that's Bing in here. The granular details doesn't end there. Features or services provided by the websites, plus their sections or content categories, are listed in cities and towns. For example, the Daily Mail can be found near the middle of the map, close to the bandwidth ocean and neighboring other news websites off the tabloid strait. Its cities among the Daily Mail, TV, Female, and U-Mag, and the Google, YouTube, Facebook, Netflix all appear on the map, as well as Wikipedia, Amazon, and Apple. The territorial sizes of the countries are based on the website's average Alexa web traffic ranking between January 20 and January 2021. There is even a section in the far south labeled as the dark web. And they call it Protocol Ocean, Preset C, Medius, T3C. There's Fandom, Gamepedia, Nimuku, NimuWiki. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And just, you know, to give you a scale of how powerful some of the companies are, and someone that you thought was somewhat significant, and they kind of disappear in the map. This is BBC. These are like the primary news of the UK. Here's the New York Times. I mean, it's absolutely nothing compared to, you know, Reddit, Baidu, CSDN, Weibo, Instagram. Here's something that I found from SciTech News. Actually, I want to thank the people that have sent me many of these articles, especially someone that we're referring to as the Super Sleuth, and looking forward to continuing to get more information going forward. But here's SciTech International Study finds unprecedented amounts of mercury in the Pacific Ocean. I brought this article in because I just recently went to the doctors, and then they said I had high levels of mercury, and I was like, I can't even imagine how that happened. I don't know if this is common, or this is something that I have in particular, or this is related to secret space programs and their need to put metals in people. Anyhow, the international team of scientists have discovered unprecedented amounts of high toxic mercury in the Pacific Ocean trenches that exceed any prior record and are higher than many areas that are directly contaminated by industrial waste. The study, published in the journal Scientific Reports on Wednesday, was a multinational effort with scientists from Canada, Denmark, Germany, and Japan. Researchers recorded that the first ever direct measurements of mercury deposits up to about 10 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific Ocean sediments are the largest repository or sink for mercury. The study states, but the measurements have never been taken from a greater than 6 kilometers below, and the team took samples from Atacama Trench off of the coast of Peru and Chile, and Kermadec Trench off of the coast of New Zealand. Keep in mind, there's a lot of people that go in and out of the ocean. There's a lot of children, there's a lot of fish, there's a lot of sea life. And it's like, where is all this mercury coming from? It has to be dumping. But it's also in our skies and everything else. Here's another article from Science Direct. Magnetogenetics, remote non-invasive magnetic activation of neural activity with a magnetoreceptor. Here's the abstract of it, and there's a download PDF, but I'll just read the abstract. Current neuromodulation techniques such as optogenetics and deep brain stimulation are transforming basic and translational neuroscience. These two neuromodulation approaches are, however, invasive since surgical implantation of optical fiber or wire electrode is required. Here we have invented a non-invasive magnetogenetics that combines the genetic targeting of a magnetoreceptor with a remote magnetic stimulation. The non-invasive activation of neurons was achieved by neuronal expression of the exogenous magnetoreceptor, an iron-sulfur cluster assembly protein 1, in HEK-2 293 cells in cultured hippocampal neurons expressing this magnetoreceptor application of an external magnetic field resulted in membrane depolarization and calcium influx in a reproducible and reversible manner, as indicated by the ultrasensitive fluorescent calcium indicator GCA MP6. Moreover, the magnetogenetic control of neural activity might be dependent on the direction of the magnetic field and exhibits on respond and off response patterns for the external magnetic field applied. The activation of this magnetoreceptor can depolarize neurons and elicit trains of actions potentials which can be triggered repetitively with a remote magnetic field in a whole cell patch clamp recording. I mean, it sounds like they're doing quite a bit of exploration, and it looks like it's related to the eye, the optical fiber. Surgical implantation. For specific neurons, applications of the external magnetic field triggered muscle contraction and withdrawal behavior of the worms. I'm talking about worms. Very strange. The complex neural microunits are the essential building blocks of how the brain works, which they are entangled with the interdependent different cell types, interconnected writing diagrams, internet-worked complicated connectome in Vivo 1 and 2, understanding how neural circuits respond to external stimuli, general electric firing patterns, process information, compute, coding, orchestrate behavior, therefore remain a greater challenge for the neuroscientist with continuous development and maturation. Much of the neurotechnical toolboxes, including optogenetics, chemogenetics, deep brain stimulation, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and has been proven to play an important role in dissecting, perturbing, and modulating interconnected neural microcircuits in healthy and diseased brains. Among these well-developed neurotechnological toolboxes, both classical deep brain stimulation and modern optogenetics make it possible to map, monitor, and manipulate physiological and dysfunctional neural microcircuit activity. They say it's to treat Parkinson's and some other, but it feels like there's something else that it's used for. And a lot of times that they create these things for government programs or corporations, experimentation, and then somehow it turns out to be, hey, look at this great thing that we discovered. We can help a person that has is diseased or has a health issue. And meanwhile, behind the scenes in some of this experimentation, there might be a soldier or innocent person that's being experimented on. Science Times, Neuralink brain chip will end language in 5 to 10 years, Elon Musk said. So now we don't want to talk to each other, we just want to think. We just want to do everything telepathic. In a recent interview, Elon stated that the human language could possibly end within 5 or 10 years. The CEO of Neuralink and to talk with Joe Rogan, implying that with the innovation of brain chip, the company is currently developing, humans won't have to speak anymore using traditional languages. The Neuralink develops a chip that will soon be able to attach to the human brain. The chip's invention aimed to communicate faster and conveniently, though through the single universal language. Is this like the code that he uses? Like, Elon believes that the way we talk today will soon improve. Brain chip expected to be completed and developed within a few years, and then our communication could possibly evolve. I didn't know we were having a hard time communicating. And then, of course, well, they can help Alzheimer's disease, spinal cord problems, even dementia. And help people that can't talk already. But the chip as presented was as tiny as a penny with threads connecting to the conductors, which will be implanted to the brain. The procedure of the brain's chips installation is simple. A piece of the skull is cut out and the chip is in place of the hole. I guess that's it. And I mean, we knew this was already out, but the idea that just doesn't want people communicating, or is designing the appropriate language that's evolved that can be used for this. Just on a side note, for people who didn't know, that the social media is also influenced by Fauci's daughter, I guess, works there. Here's another interesting piece of information. Bernard Arnault becomes the world's richest person as his LVMH stocks rise. A lot of these people are making a ton of money over the pandemic. French fashion tycoon Bernard Arnault is the world's richest person in this Monday morning, with an estimated net worth of $186.3 billion, putting him $300 million above Jeff Bezos, who is worth $186 billion, and Elon Musk worth $147.3 billion. Arnault's fortune has jumped from $76 billion in March 2020 to $186.3 billion on Monday, a massive rise of over $110 billion in the past 14 months, thanks to a pandemic-defying performance by his luxury group, LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy. I'm just having a hard time. He made all this money on clothing. But I believe he's the husband of Selma Hayek. It's interesting, as people from these corporations are going and creating these organizations, or going off into another industry. We'll see if Bernard goes in that direction as well. All right, the next article is how a tiny village was caught up in a huge Russian spy case. Near the Czech Republic's border, Slovakia is the last place you'd expect to play host to the murky world of international espionage. The town is called Vrbětic. The village, with the population of around 300, is set deep in the countryside of central Moravia in the country's far east, but things turned ugly in 2014 when the munitions depot and the former army complex of the warehouses and factories in the village sealed off with barbed wire and keep out signs exploding in a towering fireball. 2 employees were killed and much of the complex was leveled to the ground. The blast was such that farmers in nearby fields were reportedly thrown to the ground, debris scattered for miles around, and just Over a month later, another storehouse adjacent to the original site exploded under equally mysterious circumstances, forcing 400 locals to be evacuated once again. Initially, fingers were pointed at the private firm IMEX Group that had rented this site since the mid-2000s from the Czech army. Babis, the finance minister at the time, noted that another depot rented by the firm in Bulgaria had also exploded mysteriously years earlier, and he alleged that the company was blacklisted in the U.S. for violating an arms embargo with the Democratic Republic of Congo as an assertion that the firm rejected. The IMEX Group threatened to sue Babis over his remarks, warning that never ended up in the courts. And there's the map. An end-of-year report by the Minister's Interior in 2014 noticed that the investigations were ongoing, citing alleged inappropriate storage of munitions in the depot. However, that's when the case was cold and appeared to short-lived drama in the Betic was either the result of malpractice or merely an accident. Back in 2014, there was not enough evidence due to the depots being completely destroyed, and therefore the case was closed in 2015, explained Pavel Havelechik, a research fellow at the Prague-based Association for International Affairs. What is a link with Salisbury, England? It would remain closed for another 3 years until the unprecedented attack across the other side of Europe caught the eye of the Czech investigators. March 4, 2018, at the small English cathedral city of Salisbury, 2 suspected agents of the Russian GRU poisoned the former Russian military intelligence officer Sergei Skripal and his daughter. Investigations by the British police, as well as the open source investigations news outlet Bellingcat, revealed that 2 suspected GRU, or Russian military intelligence organizations agents, were Ruslan Bosharov, really named Anatoly Chepiga, and Alexander Petrov, Alexander Mishkin. For the Czech investigators, this was a lead they needed. The same names were allegedly given by 2 Russians that have visited a hotel near Bretic just before the explosion. And in later April this year, Bulgaria also announced it was investigating where Russian agents were connected to explosions at a number of its munitions depots over the past decade. Guess this is them. In the news, people want to read more about this, they can. I brought this in because of many people are looking at all different aspects of the world that are listening to our programming, and I want to have a broader spectrum. This is from the BBC News. Ministry plans to redraw the Balkan borders, and it alarms leaders. Changing borders would mean opening a Pandora's box, said Valentin Insko, an international high representative in Bosnia-Herzegovina. His job is to keep peace, which has endured since the Dayton Peace Agreement brought conflict to an end in 1995 after almost 4 years of fighting that cost around 100,000 lives. The cause of this consternation was a pair of unofficial documents suggesting some of the borders in the Balkans should be redrawn. The so-called non-papers made the rounds in diplomatic circles before being picked up by media in the Western Balkans. As far as Bosnia is concerned, its high representative is not about to entertain suggestions that the answer to its ongoing dysfunctionality would be to redraw its national boundaries. If somebody likes to think about changing the borders, he would first visit all the military graves in France to Stalingrad, he warns. The documents did not carry an author's name. That's in keeping with the unofficial nature of a non-paper, but the content causes outrage across the region. More people and more that's among the suggestions are the peace dissolution of Bosnia-Herzegovina with Serbia and Croatia annexing much of its territory, unification of Kosovo and Albania, the creation of an autonomous majority ethnic Serb region in northern Kosovo. As you can see, here's the map that displays what they wanted to do. People are worried. One of my employees was crying. She was really worried about these maps. We are making a mistake if we think that the frozen conflicts remain frozen forever, says Mr. Nzinko. You have seen Nagorno-Karabakh and Palestine frozen conflicts can break out at any time. That could also be the case in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Don Papers affair has turned into diplomatic whodunit, and few people have had anything to say in support of the ideas that contain except Bosnia's senior ethnic Serb politician Milorad Dodik, who never misses a chance to push the idea of secession for the country's majority ethnic Serb region. Under the Dayton Accords, the country was divided into a Bosniak-Croat Federation and Bosnian Serb Republic. So, that's that article. This is from Sputnik International. Secret of ultra-high-grade gold formations. The origin is unveiled, the media says. It's a nugget of gold right there. The scientists also suggested that the process that operated bonanza gold systems like the Brucejack mine may have also been involved in the formation of more typical gold deposits. The new study claims to have discovered how extremely rich gold veins are formed. Anthony Williams-Jones and Duncan McLeish, geoscientists from McGill University in Canada and authors of the new research, have pointed out that the fact that gold deposits form when hot water flows through rocks, dissolving minute amounts of gold and concentrating it into cracks in the Earth's crust of levels invisible in the naked eye and has long been known to scientists. In rare cases, the cracks have transformed into veins of solid gold, centimeters thick, they remarked. But how do fluids of such low concentrations of gold produce rare, ultra-high-grade gold deposits? Our findings solve the paradox of ultra-high-grade or bonanza gold formation, which has frustrated scientists for over a century. According to the media outlet, the process discovered by Williams-Jones, McLeish, and their colleagues while using transmission electron microscopy to study gold deposits from Brucejack Mine in British Columbia appears similar to what occurs in the milk when it sours. When the particles of the fat contained within the milk repel each other due to the negative charge they hold while the liquid is fresh, they start clumping together when the charge breaks down during the souring. And now the scientists have apparently managed to produce evidence of solid gold particles dispersed throughout hydrothermal and geothermal fluids ends up clumping together in a somewhat similar fashion in a process similar to coagulation known as flocculation, and the media outlet adds. We produced the first evidence of gold colloid formation and flocculation in nature, and the first images of small veins of gold colloid particles and their flocculated aggregates at the nanoscale, Williams-Jones McLeish said. The gold whose concentration in the geothermal fluids had to reach just a few parts per billion for the process to work and ends up turning into a jelly-like substance which then forms rich veins of precious metal as it gets trapped in the cracks of our planet's crust. So it's almost like they're they're engineering this type of gold that is more denser and probably more valuable type of gold. And that I always felt like they could, that whole thing of creating gold and or making gold have a higher value is something that they already know, and you wonder where's all the gold coming from sometimes, and they say it's all from mines. And it makes you wonder. Here's another article, the Epoch Times. As fake money enters the U.S., Chinese commentator warns of the CCP's old tactics. And I don't know if they're going to let me... Oh, they're going to force me to put my email in. I'm not going to do it. But unless someone else already has that. But yeah, here is an article. During the 3-day stretch of May 15th and May 17th, the U.S. Customs and Borders Protection stopped 24 packages containing counterfeit currencies and 685,000, all from China. Okay, so this is an article from, looks like it's today.us, US, or .us, Homeland Security. This article is CBP seizes counterfeit U.S. currency originator from China, April 24th, 2021. Yes, Homeland Security today. And U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers in Chicago International Mail Facility recently seized 281 shipments containing various counterfeit coins and $100 bills, with 95% of the shipments arriving from China. Officers at the IMF intercepted the first 2 shipments on April 16th. The first package had 1,492 $100 bills and was destined for a residence in Georgia. The second parcel contained 97 $100 bills, equivalent to 9,700, and was destined for a residence in Texas. Both shipments were declared as bar props. However, counterfeiting Federal Reserve notes is a federal crime, and April 21st, the CBP officers seized 279 parcels, all containing various denominations in coin currency, and the first seizure of the night consisted of 88 parcels containing 2,020 coins, and the next seizure was comprised of 93 parcels containing 2,548 coins. The third seizure of the night was 52 parcels containing 908 counterfeit coins, and the final seizure was of 46 parcels containing 1,191 coins. In total, the officers seized 39 50-cent coins, 6,345 $1 coins, and 283 $2.50 coins. Most of the coins had buffalo, a bald eagle, or a Native American embossed on the coins. Collector items which are sold for a profit. The face value of the bogus currency was $1,665 and $972, but all of it is worthless. The counterfeit currency is seized under the counterfeit U.S. currency coins or government securities. Counterfeiting is a lucrative business which is often used to finance illegal activities such as trafficking in human beings, drugs, and even terrorism, said Mike Pfeiffer, Assistant Area Port Director in Chicago. These are significant seizures made by officers, which prevents criminal groups from targeting our citizens, businesses, and the security of the United States. And that's the end of that article. Very interesting. Here again, lots of issues going on with money. Here's London police. This is CNN. London police seized 7 million after spotting a man struggling to carry bags stuffed with cash. Police found 7 million of cash at a southwest London flat during an investigation into firearms offenses and drug supply. London's Metropolitan Police seized 5 million or 7 million, 5 million pounds or $7 million in cash, the largest amount ever taken by the capital's police force, after the police noticed a man struggling to carry bags stashed full of money. Authorities said on June 5th, Ruslan Shamsudinov was spotted exiting an address in Fulham, southwest London, and was noticeably struggling to carry heavy bags, which he put in a nearby parked car. Police officers stopped him and found a considerable amount of cash in the bags, according to a police statement. And the search for the apartment revealed money laundering scheme and cash worth more than £5 million worth, and police said, in some 39,000 euros and more than 8,000 pounds were found at Shamsudinov's home address as a part of a long-running operation against gun and large-scale Class A drug supply across London. Over 5 million pounds in criminal cash was seized from an address in Fulham, and this is the largest ever single cash seizure by the Met, and I believe one of the largest ever nationally. Either there's a lot more crimes going on, or else the veil is lifting and people are just not able to go under the wire anymore. And there it is. Organized crime is motivated by money, is one of the biggest causes of money in our streets. Tackling the violence is our main priority. The seizure and conviction of these men laundering money that will have a major impact on the ability of a number of crime groups to carry on in their activities. The discovery came across as a protracted operation focused on firearms offenses and large-scale drug supply across London, police said. 3 men, Ruslan Shamsudinov, Sergei Ozins, and Serwin Ahmadi, were sentenced on Friday in the Harrow Crown Court after pleading guilty last year to conspiracy to conceal and disguise, convert, transfer, or remove criminal operations. So there it is. And, just a lot of topics regarding money and what's going on economically in our world, the cost of commodities and things that we need. And we will have all the links available for everyone. Thank you for listening. And this has been your news from Andronetalks News today. Have a good day.
You have been listening to Andronetalks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Arael Marrocco and visit her website at www.readingsbyarael.com.